Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Supply Chain Disruption and Content Marketing. Lessons learned from the Thinker's 50 book, Certain Uncertainty. I'm your host, Jason Jimenez Vanover, CEO of JCI Marketing, along with our COO, Kevin Jessup. This weekly event is our chance to touch base with our audience and dig into a few things. Those things will help guide us through this series and ensure that we are able to create content that is both relevant, newsworthy, and timely. We'll draw the correlation between our takeaways of this particular chapter and the events of the supply chain. We'll explore ways in which it's a useful means of creating content for that audience. And we'll bridge into some of what we're seeing across our client pool in terms of content marketing strategies. With that in mind, the focus of this week is Navigating Paradoxes by Wendy K. Smith and Marion W. Lewis, adapted from their book, Both and Thinking Embracing Creative Tensions to Solve Your Toughest Problems. Now, when we think about paradoxes, this is one of the most misunderstood but also mystical forms of content creation, and especially when you think about the supply chain. Paradoxes are a unique part of both content marketing and supply chain management when you're looking at decisions between types of content or even modes. Now, before we get into the weeds of that discussion, and we know I will, what did you think of this chapter?
Oh man, embracing creative tensions to solve your toughest problems. I got to be honest with you, my toughest problem was getting through this chapter. Oof.
Oh, goodness.
I
Kevin.
can't believe they got an entire book out of this. That was a tough read.
Well,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
it is what it is. It did get me thinking though, and it got me thinking about uh some of the paradoxes that you see in like when we create content plans for some of our clients, um, how the whole point behind marketing is to generate leads for your client. Like that's the end goal. If they didn't want leads, they wouldn't be hiring you in the first place.
Right.
So, but it's navigating the salesy content with the more open-handed educational content. And if all you're putting out there is the salesy stuff, the stuff that you would think, on paper, that's the stuff that's going to bring people in. If that's all you're putting out there, you're going to run people off. They're going to mark you as spam. This isn't helpful. I get it. You want to do business next, and they're not going to read any of your stuff. But if you
Exactly.
can be more diverse and speak in more open-handed terms, more educational terms, and just be very open with everything, talking to people who've never heard of you, talking to people who are familiar with you but aren't doing business. And then also don't forget your current client base. Talk with people who and know you. And in doing that, you have more diverse content. It's more beneficial. There's value to it. And when that's the case, they'll also read your salesy stuff. The leads will come that way as well. So it's just navigating the tension. I really like how they put that. My only gripe is that they could have just put that in a paragraph. I could have
Well,
gotten it all.
well, true, and we can, we can talk a lot about the paradox of do you write a book or do you write a chapter?
Yeah.
But I really do like the way that they discuss a lot around the either or thinking. Like, oftentimes in content marketing, much to your point, you were saying you want to say, well, we can either create content that is going to push our products, or we're not going to get any sales. Well, yeah, you can do that, but that can be to your detriment because
Yeah.
then all you're doing is creating additional content that is a retelling of everything on your services page. My favorite example from this comes from a client that we had about a year ago. And it was a conversation around a blog topic on small package services, parcel. And they wanted to create a blog about 10 reasons you should use client A for small parcel services. That's fantastic. But it wasn't going to really fulfill the purpose, which was to educate people, their audience, about the benefits of using parcel versus maybe versus LTL if they had a very, very rural network where they weren't going to be able to send whole pallets out. So, we really do have to look at it from a view of where are those paradoxes and how can we create content that is going to align across all goals, especially when you're starting out. You don't want all of your content to be so sales focused that it lacks value and feels superficial. At the same time, you do want to educate while still getting those sales bits in there. And you can do that through the creation of CTAs and calls to actions. Well, those are the same thing, but CTAs or calls to action within your content. And that's really what goes into it. But I also think that Miss Wendy and Miss whatever her name was from this chapter, Marianne, Miss Wendy and Miss Marianne from this chapter, both emphasized that you can look at it from a both and view to reinforce the validity of that content. For example, maybe it's not so much a blog topic that you would want to do on that example I gave of parcel benefits. Maybe it's not a blog. Maybe it's a one pager digging into the services in a slightly more detailed, more digestible format than it would exist on a web page. You just never really know. But you have to look at your audience needs, where they are at, and figure out how you can make it successful. And I think that this also comes down to, the decisions you're making as a content thought leader versus content creator. And those same leadership challenges exist in all businesses. So when we talk also about the three forces that accentuate paradoxes, change, scarcity, and plurality, it really comes to mind that, as businesses, we are constantly looking for the next best thing and figuring out how to do something with it. Kevin, what did you think about the idea of, change, scarcity, and plurality as being crucial to uh, figuring out paradoxes?
Well, I really like how they called these the conditions that accentuate paradoxes, change, scarcity, plurality. And they actually say it here in the quote, they say, given accelerating technological change, waning natural resources, and expansive globalization, our world feels like the perfect paradox storm. And I really like how they did this little graphic, if we can get that pulled up here. And you had some things you wanted to mention on this one.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to draw attention to is, as a writer, the first thing I see is the typo in dilemmas, but we're not going to discuss that in too much detail.
You're saying it's not de minimis?
No,
Oh.
it's not de minimis. But hey, there's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah.
So when you look at a paradox, it exists because we have the yin and yang to two opposing forces, and we have dilemmas. Should I stay or should I go? Um, those questions they ask us to answer. We are trying to actively answer them, and then we are at the same time looking at two paradoxes. Yin may be good, yang may be good, LTL may be good, full truckload may be good, maybe rail or air. They both have different factors, but you have to look at what that tension is between both and how you can use that information to make the best decision for right now. Now, part of this is you can't allow it to proceed to the point where you only navigate to one pole and stay there. Because much like the scales of justice, they must evolve. They must look beyond, the current needs. Do you have excess inventory? Okay, maybe you do. What are you going to do with it? And maybe you scale back some of your reordering, but that doesn't mean you're going to permanently scale back your reordering. Instead, maybe you need to reinvest in inventory management software, maybe even use AI capabilities to better handle your demand forecasting. There's a ton of opportunity there where you can really look at what is going to be the best decision while recognizing maybe it's a blending of decisions. This chapter, they really helped us to kind of dig further into the paradox of efficiency versus resiliency or resilience. When COVID hit, it changed the game for all supply chains. This is nothing new. But whenever it did hit, we had companies that had operated for years on an extremely lean inventory. That works fantastic until that inventory demand shifts. And that's precisely what we saw happen. I remember several months into the pandemic, we had restaurants now looking to become miniature grocery stores. For 2 weeks, I bought my milk at a coffee shop here
Hmm.
in New Braunfels versus going to the grocery store because you could not find it. And you really have to look at where the optimization lies, how you can leverage lean processes. Okay, maybe you don't order as much, but at the same time, you might need to order more than you think. And you can really apply this conversation to anything that has a tactile element. So, with the supply chain, retail, that's the most
Yeah.
obvious play in the conversation because you need to balance that need for efficiency. You don't want to have high carrying costs, but at the same time, you don't want your customers going and buying their groceries from Starbucks. So you
Yeah.
need to keep it together, yo. So when we also talk a bit about the need for localization. Companies want or customers want local brands. They want a local network that they can trust. And we've seen this many times recently with, the segment on World News Tonight, where it's, the Made in America segment. There's also been numerous studies, one of which was conducted by B2C Commerce, I believe, a few years back, that said today's millennials are willing to pay up to 30% more for a product if the company is engaging in responsible practices, kind of going back to that CSR discussion we had last week. If you missed it, you can catch it on our website under the video library. We'll toss the link in the comments below so you can check that out as well. And it really helps us to understand where we are headed in an overall direction as both marketers, supply chain uh, subject matter experts, and then figuring out what we're going to use that information for in content. So, Kevin, what did you think a bit about some of the content marketing points in here?
Yeah, and I can also just add real quick. I was watching this video, I think it was on LinkedIn. It was talking about how this, I can't remember the guy's name. Oh, well, not important. Some guy was talking about how they ran this experiment to try and make the food found in schools more localized. And it ended
Jamie
up,
Oliver.
oh, is that what it was?
Yes.
Oh man, it was fantastic. What a great video. I wish if I can remember, I'll put the link to it down below in the comments. But it was so good of reinvesting in the local community, getting more balanced meals for the students, because a lot of the students, I believe, if I remember correctly, they like worked on the farms, but they were selling all the goods because obviously that's their profit. And so they were left with these overly processed foods that they got from the store instead of taking part in the really good, organic food that they were, selling off. Really just solid video. We'll put that down in the comments below if y'all get a chance. But I just thought that was a great example of the tensions being navigated between more globalization, trying to be as efficient as possible, making the most profit as possible across the globe, but also reinvesting in your local community, and just navigating that tension. I thought that was really good. But to answer your question, which was more about different types of paradoxes that you could find within marketing, one of my favorites, full disclosure, I put this into ChatGPT because I wanted a bunch of different examples. I wanted to see what the AI thought of these paradoxes, and they actually came up with some really good examples. Just throw these out here. The paradox of privacy and personalization. So a lot of stuff like within HubSpot or pretty much any sort of CRM, you can do personalization cues. So for my content marketers out there, you can do like whatever this person's name is, and the computer just knows what their name is. And it's so strange. It reminds me of that. I don't know if you ever watched Parks and Rec, but it's whenever Ron Swanson finds out what cookies are on the internet and he just throws away his entire computer. But it's the paradox is respecting people's privacy, but also as marketers, we need to make it more personal because we're trying to talk to them as individuals. And so there's that. And then the other one that it came up with, what are you doing with the what are you doing with the camera there, buddy?
My apologies. I accidentally knocked the cord loose from the computer.
I was wondering what you're doing. It's all right. We're live, folks. The second one was the paradox of consistency and innovation. And I really liked this one. It's very similar to the point that I was mentioning earlier of, as brands, we need our brand voice to be consistent, what our identity is. And people need to know whenever they see content coming out from whether it's us at JCI Marketing or one of our customers who we are, doing content for, we need to be able to communicate who they are consistently. But you can't forget about innovation. You need to evolve, and so the paradox for that is balancing, fresh marketing strategies and the need for consistent branding. If you stay too much on the consistency side, then your content's going to be stagnant and no one's going to pay attention. But if you lean too much on the innovation side, then people aren't really going to know who you are. So it's dipping your toe into each one and just managing those tensions.
Definitely. Yeah. There is something that I keep in mind when we have some client meetings where I put on my thinking cap, and being a writer first, creativity is baked into what I do.
Yeah.
So I kind of view it as like, okay, it's time for the marketing mania, where it is a conversation about all sorts of ideas, and different ideas may have merit in their own right, but you want to make sure that those ideas will align with the brand goals, the brand values, and that they're not going to be too extreme, but at the same time, not subpar, because you want the content to echo the sales goals, but from a slightly toned down perspective, and being able to address your audience no matter where they are at in their buyer's journey. Are they just finding out about your business in the awareness group? Are they at the top of our funnel? Are they moving further down into the consideration group? Are they wondering what it is that you do, how they can leverage your services? And then are they at the point where they're like, okay, we do need this. We're at the bottom of the funnel. They are in the decision-making phase. And the only thing that's left to do is convince them and pull them through the funnel. And that's really where you have to look at what are the unique paradoxes that they are experiencing at every stage of the funnel. How can you create content that's going to both address their pain point while also seeming like you're not pushing in a particular direction? Yeah. And, I really find that impactful when we look at content creation, because it works seamlessly with the globalization versus localization paradox. It blends together perfectly with inventory management. It blends together with LTL versus full truckload. It blends together with, BNSF versus CXX or CX, whatever the other one is. Or if you are looking at different carriers, or maybe different modes, or maybe a blending of modes, or maybe two routes, or whatever the case may be. Oh, hey, one that's been really relevant in the last week. Are you gonna go through Suez, or are you gonna try to leverage intermodal across the U.S. and then, avoid the need to go through Suez. You have to figure out what's going on, because right now the Panama Canal is about to implement very, very strict measures. I think they're going to bring it down to 5 major vessels clearing the Panama Canal per day.
Wow.
Because the drought there is just terrible. So I really think that there's a lot of paradox that we have to deal with as both supply chain marketers and as content marketers in general.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of paradox, there is another thing that you'll have to decide whenever you're watching these videos, and that's, are you going to tune in next week for our next discussion, or are you going to just kind of see what the news is about and how you can better apply content marketing practices in your organization? And I'm going to give you a tip, okay? We have a weekly newsletter that goes out that covers the highlights from this video, as well as some actionable marketing tips for you to better improve to better your content marketing strategies, and also some inspiration that will help you in creating social media posts if you were to perhaps write them yourself, or maybe even ask good old ChatGPT for some assistance. So, like what Mr. Kevin did for preparing for this event. Right.
It worked. They were really good examples. I liked it.
Definitely. So I hope you all have a great rest of your Wednesday. If you have any additional comments or thoughts on this, feel free to DM myself or Kevin, or put them in the comment section of this event. And you can also visit our website at jci-marketing.com. You'll be able to sign up for our newsletter by scrolling to the bottom of the page and filling out the form. Kevin, do you have anything left to add?
I'm just proud of us for not making a pair of docs pun. We resisted. That's good. High five, buddy.
What?
Pair of docs. Paradox.
Yeah, mine are in the closet, so I will talk to you.
I was thinking like chip doc. You got it. Oh boy.
That would be cross-docking heaven. No.
Oh, okay. Well,
no.
That's all I got.
Well, I think that's you said paradox, and I was like, a pair of dogs. I have some Doc Martens in the closet. So, all right, y'all. Well, I hope you had a great time with us today. Be sure to join us next week, where we'll be discussing. What are we going to be discussing next week? I don't even remember. Next week, we're discussing the why, what, and how of leadership by Paul R. Carlisle. And I think we're going to have some really exciting things coming up in the coming weeks. We have several guest speakers that will be joining us. And I look forward to visiting with you all again next Wednesday. Thanks.